Welcome to the introductory course on linguistics. Linguistics is a science of language. Linguists use the scientific method to understand how human languages are structured, how they evolved, what properties all languages share, and how they're different from one another, how they're used, and how humans construct their social realities through them. Linguistics is a vast field. In this course, we're going to just dip our toes into its very foundations, and we will begin by defining the very concept at the core of this field, language. Language is a very complex phenomenon. It can be defined from different theoretical perspectives. Our objectives in today's lecture are to develop a working definition of language that we're going to rely on in this course, and to list those sub-areas of linguistics that we're going to address during this semester. Often, the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word language is a specific mode humans use to communicate in their communities. For example, you can think of English or Spanish or Tagalog or Mandarin or Bulgarian or any other of more than 7,000 languages spoken in the world. But for linguists, the main subject of study is not any one specific communicative system per se, but the innate ability of humans to acquire and use such a communicative system. Of course, this means that linguists do study individual languages. We will call them languages with the lowercase l. To understand the overall human ability to communicate through language, we will call it language with a capital L. Whichever language or languages we speak, they are an inherent part of what it means to be human. We use language to communicate with one another, to construct essential components of our cultures such as history, mythology, literature, and our customs, and we use it to pass on knowledge from one generation to another. Keeping that in mind, it is important to review some facts about language and languages. Facts we sometimes forget or don't even think about. First, when linguists study language, they focus primarily on the spoken and signed languages, since those are the languages we acquire by interacting with other members of our communities. While most languages are spoken, there is a multiplicity of sign languages in the world as well, and they are as complex and as varied as spoken languages. All languages, whether spoken or signed, are systematic. Each has consistent and discoverable patterns of organizing sounds into morphemes, building words from these morphemes, and organizing words into meaningful utterances, which then function to organize interaction. All languages change. They change over time. Old English doesn't sound anything like modern English, for example, and they change across space and social communities. This is easily demonstrable by the fact that an American or an Australian sounds different from a British person, or a Singaporean, or a New Zealander, even though they all speak the same language, English. Variability and change are inherent to languages. And finally, languages are built from small, meaningless units, such as individual sounds, which combine into larger, meaningful units, such as words, phrases, and utterances. In this course, we're going to focus on these basic units and the rules that govern them. Given these facts about language, the working definition of language we're going to accept as the basis for our course is this. Language is a system of rules we acquire and know subconsciously and follow in producing and understanding communicative units in interaction. When we know a language, we know how to make sounds of this language and put them together into words, how to make new words and word forms in it. We know what the words mean and how to use them and how to string them into meaningful utterances, making form adjustments in the process. We also know how to engage in interaction with others, following the rules of discourse. These areas of knowledge are studied in different subfields of linguistics. Phonetics, for example, focuses on the study of the production of speech sounds, as well as their perception. Phoneticians also study the physical properties of speech sounds, including their frequencies and amplitudes. But unlike phonology, phonetics focuses on speech sounds in and of themselves, individually, and in isolation from other sounds. Phonology, on the other hand, examines the patterns and rules that governs how sounds combine together in words and utterances. The goal is to discover and describe predictable patterns of sound combination within each language and across languages. In other words, phonology studies what happens to speech sounds as they are produced in actual speech. Like phonetics and phonology, morphology and syntax are two closely related subfields. In fact, we often talk about the morphosyntax of a language. Nevertheless, their foci of study are somewhat different, even though overlapping. Morphology involves the study of how words are made in a language, how their meanings or functions change as specific parts are added to them, and how they change their forms depending on the job they do in an utterance. Syntax takes us further by examining the rules by which we organize words into meaningful utterances, how these rules interact with word forms, and how these rules and word orders that they specify vary across languages. The next pair of closely related subfields of linguistics focuses on meaning. Semantics focuses on how humans construct and perceive meanings of individual words, how words are related to one another in meaning, and how meanings of individual words combine to create new meanings in phrases. And while semantics focuses on meaning pretty much abstracted from the interaction, pragmatics focuses specifically on how humans construct and interpret meaning in interaction. Because in interactions, we don't simply say things, we perform actions through words, and we subconsciously cooperate in creating meaning in context. Pragmatics focuses on all of these aspects of meaning in interaction. These 6 areas of linguistics lie at the foundation of all the other branches of linguistic science. We cannot possibly cover all of these branches in one semester. But some of these areas that might interest you in the future are language acquisition, which studies how humans gain the ability to communicate in their native or additional languages. Neurolinguistics, which focuses on the neural mechanisms of language processing. Historical linguistics, which explores the origins of languages and their development over the course of time. Sociolinguistics, a study of how language and society mutually shape each other. Anthropological linguistics, which investigates the relationships between languages and cultures. Forensic linguistics, whose focus lies in the study of language as it applies to crime investigation and the pursuit of justice. And computational linguistics, an investigation and application of computer science to the analysis and synthesis of language and speech. Let us now begin our exploratory journey into the science of language.